Hey everyone, welcome back to English Echo Daily. Today we are talking about something that I think is going to surprise a lot of people, silence. And more specifically, why the quietest people in the room are very often the most powerful ones. In a world that rewards those who speak the loudest, who post the most, who are always on, we want to make the case today for silence, for stillness, for the incredible strength that lives in quiet people.
This is a topic that is really close to my heart because I think quiet people are massively misunderstood. Society has this idea that if you're not loud, not outgoing, not constantly expressing yourself, something must be wrong with you. You're shy or antisocial or lacking confidence. But that is such a shallow and inaccurate way of seeing people who simply experience and process the world differently.
Exactly. And the research actually backs this up. Some of the most effective leaders, the most creative thinkers, the most emotionally intelligent people in history have been deeply quiet individuals. People who listened more than they spoke, who thought deeply before acting, who found their strength in stillness rather than noise.
So let's start by separating two things that people often confuse, being quiet and being weak, because they have absolutely nothing to do with each other. Weakness is about how you respond to pressure, to challenge, to difficulty. And quiet people, it turns out, often handle pressure in a way that is far more controlled and effective than their louder counterparts.
Think about it this way. When a difficult situation arises, a conflict, a crisis, a challenge, who do you want in the room? The person who immediately reacts loudly and emotionally, or the person who stays calm, observes carefully, thinks clearly, and then responds with precision? Quiet people tend to be the second type, and that is an extraordinary strength.
There's actually a beautiful concept in psychology called response flexibility, the ability to pause between a stimulus and a response, to choose how you react rather than just automatically reacting. And research shows that people who are naturally more introverted and quieter tend to have higher response flexibility. They don't just fire off a reaction, they process, they consider, and then they respond.
And that quality, being able to pause, is one of the most valuable things a person can have in arguments, in negotiations, in relationships, in leadership. The person who can stay quiet when everyone else is reacting, who can hold space and think clearly under pressure, that person has enormous power.
Let's talk about listening, because this is where quiet people have an absolutely massive advantage. Real listening, deep, genuine, attentive listening, is one of the rarest and most valuable skills in human interaction. And quiet people, by nature, tend to be far better listeners than those who are always eager to speak.
When you're truly listening to someone, not waiting for your turn to talk, not formulating your response while they're still speaking, but actually absorbing what they're saying, you pick up information that others miss completely. You understand people more deeply. You notice what's not being said as much as what is. And that understanding gives you insight that talkative people simply don't have access to.
You have two ears and one mouth. Use them in that proportion. That old saying is so simple but so profound. The people who listen twice as much as they speak learn twice as much, understand twice as much, and ultimately make far better decisions than those who spend most of their time talking.
There's also something powerful about the way quiet people observe. When you're not busy talking, you're watching. You're noticing body language, dynamics, patterns, details. You're building a comprehensive picture of the situation while everyone else is too busy performing to actually pay attention.
This is why quiet people often seem to know things that others don't. It's not magic, they've simply been paying attention while everyone else was talking. They've been reading the room, watching the dynamics, listening between the lines. And when they finally do speak, what they say tends to be deeply considered and remarkably accurate.
Still waters run deep. This is a beautiful English expression that applies perfectly here. It means that people who are quiet and calm on the surface often have tremendous depth beneath. Just like a deep, still river looks calm but is actually full of power and currents underneath.
Now let's talk about something that quiet people often struggle with, being underestimated.
In social and professional settings, the louder, more outgoing person often gets more immediate attention, more credit, more opportunities. And quiet people watch this happen and sometimes wonder if they need to change who they are to compete.
And the answer is no, absolutely not. The solution is not to become someone you're not. The solution is to understand your own strengths deeply enough that you can leverage them strategically. Quiet people don't need to win by being loud. They win by being precise, thoughtful, and impactful when they do choose to speak.
Because here's something interesting about how silence functions in communication. When a quiet person speaks, people listen differently. There's weight to it, there's credibility. When someone speaks constantly, their words start to blur together. It all becomes background noise. But when someone who is usually quiet says something, the room pays attention. Silence actually creates influence.
Speak only when your words are better than silence. That's a principle that quiet people naturally live by, and it makes every word they say land harder, carry more weight, and be remembered longer than the constant stream of someone who never stops talking.
Let's talk about the inner world of quiet people, because I think this is something that gets overlooked entirely. Quiet people tend to have incredibly rich inner lives. They think deeply, they feel deeply, they process deeply. Their minds are constantly working, analyzing, questioning, imagining, creating.
Many of the greatest artists, writers, scientists, and thinkers in history were deeply introverted and quiet people. Albert Einstein, Isaac Newton, Rosa Parks, Frederick Chopin, J.K. Rowling, all known for being quiet, reflective, and deeply internal. Their silence was not emptiness, it was the space where extraordinary thinking happened.
Creativity, in particular, thrives in silence and solitude. The best ideas rarely come in the middle of noisy social situations. They come in the quiet moments, in the shower, on a walk, in the stillness before sleep. Quiet people live in that creative space more naturally and more often, and that gives them a profound creative advantage.
And there's a spiritual or philosophical dimension to this too. Many wisdom traditions across cultures emphasize the value of silence, meditation, contemplation, stillness. The idea that in silence, we connect with something deeper in ourselves, that we access clarity and wisdom that the noise of the world drowns out. Quiet people are often naturally more connected to that deeper level of awareness.
Now, I want to address something important: the difference between healthy quietness and unhealthy silence. Because not all silence is powerful. There's a kind of silence that comes from confidence, from depth, from intentional observation, and that's what we've been talking about. But there's also silence that comes from fear, from suppression, from feeling like your voice doesn't matter.
If you're quiet because you genuinely prefer it, because you process internally, because you choose your words carefully, that's a strength. But if you're quiet because you're afraid to be seen, afraid to be wrong, afraid to take up space, that's something worth working on. Not to become louder, but to become free. Free to speak when you have something to say without fear holding you back.
The goal for quiet people is not to become extroverts. It's to be fully, confidently, and unapologetically themselves. To own their quietness as a feature, not a bug. To stop apologizing for needing less stimulation, for thinking before speaking, for preferring depth over breadth in their interactions.
And for the louder, more extroverted people listening, this is an invitation to appreciate the quiet people in your life more deeply. The friend who doesn't talk much, but always knows exactly what to say when it matters. The colleague who never dominates meetings, but whose contributions are always the most thoughtful. The partner who listens so well that you feel genuinely understood.
These people are not background characters in your story. They are often the most perceptive, most loyal, and most deeply present people you know. And the world needs them every bit as much as it needs the bold, loud, expressive ones.
We need both. The world needs people who speak up and make noise and push things forward boldly. And it needs people who listen, who observe, who think deeply, and who speak with precision and wisdom. Neither is better. Both are essential.
But today,
On a day when the world is louder than ever, when silence feels almost radical, we wanted to remind you that there is extraordinary power in stillness, that the quietest person in the room might be the one seeing everything most clearly, and that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply stop, listen, and let the silence speak.
If you're a quiet person listening to this today, this episode is for you. Your silence is not weakness. Your depth is not aloofness. Your thoughtfulness is not hesitation. You are exactly as you should be, and the world is better for having you in it.
Thank you so much for listening to English Echo Daily. We hope this one made you think and maybe appreciate silence a little bit more. See you in the next episode.
Take care, everyone, and remember, sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. Bye.
Bye.